Good morning, everybody. John Spielka here for Gen AI News, rating your top news, essential, important, or optional from GAI Insights. We have kind of a full house today, as well as having Lucinda Lindy, one of our guest raters and a fantastic developer and business strategist. So good to have you here. We have Luda, Paul, and Adam, and a full set of new articles to put thoughts in your head and time in your day, gives you the ability to stay ahead. All right. First one we have here is a new capability that is, it's called Ray 2. It's a new frontier model that allows you to generate video images, and they are spectacular. So what did you think here, Adam?
This is optional news, and we continue to see the trend, right? Which is that these text to video tools, these generative video tools, just continue to get better and better. And Luma actually started in the 3D mesh and modeling and sort of digital twin digitization space, and pivoted to video. And it's getting back to what we were discussing with Sora originally around world models, right? And so this is coming, and it's getting a lot better. This is definitely the best one that's out there right now. Kling 1.6 is a close second, which has been out for a while, but it's optional news, although incredible, the kind of video that are coming out of these now.
Yeah, it's mesmerizing. I couldn't stop watching it. It was so good. It's really good.
Yeah, so we got, but you know, again, everyday miracles. We got optional here on this. What do you think, Drew? Lucinda, what do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, agree with all the comments on just how spectacular it is. I had to watch that one with the bee pollinating the flower multiple times because I'm like, is there a flaw there? You know, what am I seeing? And it's really excellent. But I agree, optional everyday news, everyday miracles, you know?
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, that beats Sora for sure. And I don't know where we will go with this. So this is incredible.
Yeah. Paul, you voting optional here?
Yeah, it's optional for me, but it's interesting to think where this will be a year from now. Right now, we're seeing exemplar behavior on the creation of it. And this is all about emotion. So I think starting to track the emotion with it as well. So you're actually asking video for not just text to video, but text to emotion. Maybe the next frontier that we're seeing real everyday miracles on a year from now.
Yeah.
Well, and length, right? In length, Paul, right? So currently we can't quite handle the longer videos. We're focusing on quality, but the quality is already there. So now it will be the length. We'll be able to generate full-size movies, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about, and let me make the case for important for a second. You know, I sent it off to, I'm on the board of a promotional products company, and I sent it off to the CEO this morning. Because, you know, any company, they're going to have to use video to, I think, it's a TikTok world, right? Every company's going to have short form video as part of everything that they do, whether it's training or marketing or onboarding or talking to the street or whatever, right? And this is right up there. I don't know. I mean, it's the leading model. I'm in a Democratic mood today as we sit here just before our next president gets installed. So I'll go with it. But can I get anybody over here on the other side of the fence? Important. Going once, twice.
No.
All right, optional it is. Next.
Well, hang on, Luda, that's the first time he didn't pick up the chalk, so you're a witness.
Yeah, I know. We are making progress.
Well, you know what they say. Random reinforcement is the most powerful reinforcement. So if I want you to think you're in a democracy, I should occasionally lay one down.
Or should we say everyday miracles?
All right, Minimax. Minimax, open source, from our friends in China, Shanghai, being funded by Alibaba and some of the big folks. I really think that we're going to cover the model part here, but I think that the geopolitics of these open source models is going to be central. It's very much like, reminds me of with the Huawei conversation where the Chinese were, putting surveillance capability inside the phone switches that the Europeans are starting to adopt. And there's a big thing in the EU. And I know, having worked for a large, audit firm, it was very much a concern of the government and of the audit firm about the security profile as they as they adopted those switches. And same thing I think is going to be here. But let's talk about the model itself. Let's see, who do we have on this? We have Luda. What do you think?
Well, this is, I think, a fascinating model. I'm not sure what's happening with the screen here. So it has the whopping 456 billion parameters that trigger at runtime. 5.9 of them trigger at runtime. It has the content length window of 4 million tokens. So all of those are much, much bigger than what we currently have as state of the art. So I have to say it's important news. But I think even more important, how they've managed to make it so, right? So the innovation behind it, it's quite significant. So they are talking about, so this is the performance. It's kind of, it's at par, let's say. But the latency, look at this.
Yeah. The par, but if you go back up for a second, it's massively different when it talks about degradation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And also the latency, look at that, right? So the context window and the latency drop. So this is quite dramatic. The way they did it, right? The simplistic way I can describe it, even though I want to go read it some more. So they replaced the softmax function in the transformer by the norm function. And moreover, they are updating the parameter norm function to reduce the quadratic complexity into linear complexity. And then they use this linear function, right, in 7 of the layers, and the softmax function to normalize it in 1 layer. So that gives you this quadratic complexity going down and the effect that you are seeing in performance of the model. So I rate it as important. I think everybody needs to know that this is happening. This is open source with weights and everything. And I think people will start looking at it and using it, and it will advance the field for sure.
All right. So we're going to rate this important, you think, or what?
Yeah, important. Yes.
Important. All right. We got an important here. Lucinda, Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll jump in for sure, and just a little plain speak. So what they're doing effectively with all that incredible stuff that Luda just described is they're only lighting up 10% of the model with any inference call. So it's a 460 billion parameter model, but they're only lighting up 46 billion parameters on a call. So they've basically reduced the size of the model at time of inference to 10% of the size. So it is a really incredible step forward, I think, and I'd agree it's important.
Yep, I agree that it's important. Ashish made a great comment, masterclass on deep learning from Luda. That's awesome. Yes, that was really what struck me as well, is that the transformer technology really brute forces things in a lot of ways. And this is really, I think it's really subtle to say, okay, let's look at the functions that we're using at the various layers or different components of transformers and see if we can get more efficiency. Decreasing the quadratic, dependency or the impact of the context window is huge. So, and the latency is actually huge as well. I'll talk more about latency in an article I'm talking about here. But yeah, totally agree. I think important, something to look at. If we can
right,
use it,
and it's also, yeah, in the article we will be talking about today, right? We talk about memory and the context window that is some huge number bigger, X number bigger than the current state of the art. What it gives you is the memory, the short term and the long term in one big go, right? So as a result, they also don't have to think about it while you're using this window and deploying it. So important on all those, I think.
And the key term to take away, which I think we'll start hearing more of then, is lightning attention architecture. So as opposed to transformer. So that's the lightning architecture is what Luda was describing there. That's what they're calling it.
Yeah, it's replacing the linear, the what is masters of MOE with the linear function.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating that we're going to see this oscillation between quadratic exploration and linear, and as a way to approximate our way. It's kind of like a sloppy man's calculus, right? I mean, when you think about it. Anyway, fascinating stuff. All right, important. Next, we're going to the transforming the software development lifecycle. And this is an article that lays out basically a partnership between IBM and Bedrock that goes down through and says where all the places in a software development lifecycle can generative AI help out, and like that. So, Lucinda, what did you think of this one here?
Yes. So, Ankash, if you could scroll down to the sneaky diagram there.
It's me. So
sorry.
Milestones or this one? This one.
You were Ankash today. Okay, Luda, thank you. All right, yeah, that's the one. All right, so I think that this is an important article because even if you're not using IBM, because of how it talks about transforming the software development life cycle, there's really, and in this case, they do an end-to-end integration of generative AI into all the different parts between IBM, yes, and AWS. To really kind of inject it. And I think that's one of the characteristics we've been seeing about generative AI is that it infuses, it's such a granular level. It's like sand everywhere. You can put it here in this process. It can put it in every single part of the software development process. I mean, some benefits are that it can, improve standardization and consistency, so that you're actually, not having a lot of variety in how things are implemented or less variety, and that you're always going with best practices. They cite quantifiable benefits up to 30% reduction in development time, 25% improvement in code quality, and 60% reduction in the analysis phase of the duration. It's also generative AI, as we're finding out, is becoming more and more scalable as all the different infrastructure pieces are being built. And this is important, like for anybody who has an IBM system running, which is in a lot of enterprises, in finance and government, et cetera.
Sure.
So I would say that, whether or not you have an IBM system, I just think the discussion is really helpful, and the graphics, et cetera, of explaining where things go.
Yeah, really, a massive opportunity because the majority of compute is still done on premise inside these large organizations, even with the huge cloud providers. So, the big banks, the telecommunications, the utilities, some of them can't buy cloud, right? By regulatory fiat, they have to have to have control of their IT department. So big market here. What do you think? Important? Essential? Optional? Adam, I think you and I came at this optional in the pregame show here.
Yeah, Lucinda's definitely framed a broader context to the conversation than I was thinking when I read it at first. So I still feel it's probably optional, but I'm far closer to the fence than I was to begin with. I felt like it provided a lot of information without providing a lot of detail, if that makes sense.
Boy, that's a beautiful phrase. I'm going to steal that. You provided a lot of attention without providing a lot of information.
A lot of information, yeah, without a lot of detail.
What do you say, Luda? You going to give Adam a hand up over the fence here, or are you going to?
Yeah. I agree with Lucinda. It provides the structure of how you need to think about the agentic architectures. In this case, this is the software development lifecycle, right? But you will have to kind of review what you're doing in each type of application and see how you can modularize it and simplify it using LLMs, right? So an agent. So I think Lucinda framed it into an important category for sure, for me.
All right, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, the announcement itself is a Barney relationship, but I do think the graph here that Lucinda's talking about, and I think our AI leaders should be talking about this, an AI-enabled workflow, rather than to get caught up in the tsunami of agents. I mean, this is where the value is going to be, and this is where, we're looking at ourselves for how we do our own AI-enabled research workflow. So I do agree with Lucinda. This generalized graph is a value, so important.
Yeah, Paul, by the way, I found a great definition of an agent that I loved. It said dress up the LLM with, or wrap LLM with a very tight objective, the tools that it needs, and the evaluation function, and you got yourself an agent.
There you go. Not so bad.
Yeah, I liked it.
All right, we're headed for important on this one. I think it's a massive opportunity. I always laugh when people talk about the overinvestment in AI. If you look at the cost structures, of the hyperscalers, if they do nothing but get these kind of productivity numbers out of their software development, every single dollar they spend will be paid for just internally. So it's, people need to remember, software development is at least a third of Microsoft's cost base, and this is going to have a radical, reduction of that cost base.
Ray was commenting with Lucinda, so for sure.
Yes, no question.
Thank you.
Tech leaders. All right. Next.
Sorry, just one comment on your comment, John, which is that I think Facebook just recently said they're laying off 5% of people. And I got to believe that this is really at the bottom of that.
No question in my mind. I mean, and you look at, requirement specifications, 60%. I mean, that's, that means we're getting closer to, the idea that's been around in software forever, which is the ability for a business person to just sit down and, no code, generate capability. And we're not there, but maybe we're getting closer. All right. Titans. Learning to memorize at test time. We got a thing out of Google Research here, talking about different algorithms against the long-term and short-term memory concepts. What do you think here, Adam?
Finding the mute button. It's super interesting. It could be quite important. I think it's a little hard to digest. Frankly, it's pretty technical. And I believe the TLDR, correct me if I'm not understanding it, is that there's sort of this trade-off to just taking notes effectively and not having a whole transcript, or getting all of the information, but then the overhead that comes with that. And this is a new model that tries to sort of take the best from both of those worlds. But it's research, and I don't think it's something that our readers really need to be paying attention to at this point.
All right, so we have an optional from Adam. What do you think here, Luda?
Yeah, it's sort of going at the same stuff that we've just discussed with the min-max, right? It's trying to get the memory orchestrated. And we've discussed it before, that the better you have the memory put together for the model to reach out to, the better the inference and accuracy and whatnot. And so there's this balance that's going on. I agree, this very hard to digest technical paper, but and the roots of the min-max and what these guys are talking about are the same. So they're replacing the core functions with different functions, the softmax with kernel and blah blah blah. So it's kind of experimenting with the same stuff. So, but I think it's optional for our readers for now. But this will be picked up across the board, I think, as a technique for new models.
All right, we have an optional, but interesting for our technical audience. What do you think?
Yeah. So I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So for this one, I actually I listened to this guy named Matthew Berman, and he said he had a hard time understanding it. So he just asked, did a lot of back and forth with ChatGPT to tell me, give me analogies. And the analogies that he gave for this were that if you think about our own brain and how our brain works together, that we have different types of memory. We have memory based on surprise, memory based on long-term, short-term, etc. We have a certain forgetting function within our brain. And so they're really just built a bunch of different components that do that. So yes, I can see it's optional because it's a really deep technical article, but I do feel like this architecture is likely to be starting to be used at Google and may show a way of the different ways of balancing memory and compute and all the other aspects. So I think it could be very important. But yes, it's a deep read. It's not now. The AI leader can just kind of keep an eye out for it, and one eye on scanning the horizon.
Yeah. So the Google was the pioneer of the long context window. Now they're challenged, right? And that by the minimax that we've just discussed. So it is going to be the battlefield of the titans. So it's and they're working on it. That I'm very pleased. So I agree with Lucinda. It is a very important topic, memory integration into our models and how we do it. But it's optional.
Yeah, I think also if you look at it, it's got really good performance on, not only language modeling, but the needle in a haystack thing, 4 million, tokens, and it finds it exactly in one of the, things here. And then, its ability with long-term reasoning. What's interesting is that I think I'm going to rate it optional, but when you think about what the implications are here, I think our interactions with these models are going to be completely different than we've done in the past, where you put in queries and things like that. In lots of settings, we'll be able to take big hunks of reality, whether it's video plus text and all that other stuff, and kind of jam it into these things, and then, interrogate any number of things within that, which is, I think, a very different, kind of sampling reality and throwing it in the machine is going to be a different way of thinking about these interactions.
Yeah. So one of the innovations here, John, that I forgot about, they're working on how do you parallelize the memory, right? And that will again increase the efficiencies. So there's a number of innovations here, but yeah, optional.
Yes, and we do have to remember it's the Google folks who brought us the transformer. So there you go, Google DeepMind. All right, next, optional, next. MatterGen, very interesting new paradigm here of creating, basically synthetically being able to create materials and then predict what their behaviors might be. This is phenomenal. As I talk to my material science friends, we've explored less than 1% of the known compounds, never mind the ones we can imagine. And when you find a particular compound, like with was it lithium cobalt, that was the beginning of the lithium batteries back in the 1980s. So the power of finding one new kind of material can be significant. So what'd you think here, Luda?
Yeah, it's coming from Microsoft research, right? The article is published in Nature. So this is certainly a breakthrough for materials folks, and the fact that in general that most of our innovations and breakthroughs are material related, like batteries and the like. So and I've invested in materials. I get really excited about that of innovations. So the difference here, they're after unknown materials, coming at it from the result. So you want to have a material for this particular application. And from the investor in materials, what happens, you feel when you have a new compound and you see applications across the board in many fields, but tightening it to deliver that performance in a particular application is a 10-year proposition, at least, right? And a lot of those fail. So here, they're using the power of LLMs and different architectures to go at here's the material that is needed, here are the requirements performance-wise, and they come at it from that perspective. And it seems like successful because they've simulated an intersection of chemistry, symmetry, properties all together, right? With the noising and denoising and whatnot here. So, and they're screening it, right? Outperformance screening. So it's an amazing article, a breakthrough in material research, I think but I don't know. I think it's optional for our reader. I would love to hear from others.
Yeah, I was going to make the case for important just because the this notion of, these new computable reality models, if you want to call them that, that in the deep science that's relevant to certain industries. So, we had one the other day with Mayo and Microsoft in terms of their ability to predict rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, these are, if you're in pretty much any industry, you have to understand where these new big, prediction machines are coming. But what do folks think?
I mean, one thing it highlights to me, Luda, is how fast this is changing and how AI leaders need to create learning and time ability in their organization here. I mean, one of the companies we're working with, we give them a customized newsletter each week and the top 3 use cases, and that's going to a team to start to think about it. And I think if you look about material science here, the video one earlier today, whatever top use case is, these leaders, it's more than one paper. They've got to figure out a learning capability. But for me, this is optional. I don't think it's, I think it's like the video. It's really important in that niche, but it's optional for the general.
All right, Lucinda, what do you think?
Yeah, so my undergrad is in material science and engineering. And so I used to stare at the periodic table and look at electron structures and think about okay, what kind of materials could we actually try? And then we'd have to go try it out. Everything was trial and error. So this is huge in a very analogous way to doing proteins and DNA sequencing, et cetera. You can explore gigantic computational spaces and then narrow down to be able to figure out exactly which things you're actually going to test, which is where the time and money goes. So agree, optional. For anybody who's in this field, this is huge. This is for going forward, exploring things. But yeah, it's what a different world we live in now than back in the old days.
What do you say, Adam? This is the AlphaFold of material science, or what are we doing?
I was optional, and I was trying to find a way to support you on this, John, because you've been so democratic up to this point tonight. And so I actually just had a quick chat with GPT, and I was asking about other transformative problem-solving paradigms, transformative problem-solving paradigms. That this is an example of how really a problem-solving paradigm is really being transformed. And the couple quick examples I saw was generative AI for scientific theories, right? Just as Matter Gen designs materials, one day AI could propose new physical laws or scientific theories, right? And it could sort of simulate physics in a similar way. And the other one was ecosystem engineering. And as I read that, I thought, I think I could support Important on this. There are some pretty profound things that this alludes to, I think, and it's good for people to be thinking ahead at what may be coming.
All right, Adam,
also, it's incredible to think what people are going to do with this in the next year, right? It's amazing.
You talked me into Important. I was kind of my material science self wanted to do that, but it's also the reason why there were 2 Nobel Prize winners this year in basic scientific industries because of the power that AI provided to the advances in those biology and physics.
Yeah, I love the frame here. We're coming up on time.
You got Vivek's vote as well, so
that's right. And audience members get three votes per whatever the 3.
Yeah, I'll shift to Important, John. And
all right.
We reviewed several months ago. One of the national labs did a similar project, finding materials for a specific type of application, and they created a material, and the cycle time reduction was, I think they got to a prototype within 3 months. It was stunning. So we're seeing a similar thing here.
All righty, we're running out of time here, so we're going to give this guy an Important. Last one, NVIDIA.
All right.
We got NVIDIA tackles agentic safety and security with NeMo guardrails and the NIMS in their, NVIDIA, information, whatever. What do you think here, Lucinda? Sorry.
Yes. So I'm optional, but could be talked into Important. NVIDIA is obviously a key player who is more and more entering into cloud data centers, et cetera. Specifically, these 3 new NIM services target Number one, content safety for blocking harmful content. Number two, topic controls to, keep, AI interactions with boundaries, so access control, etc., and jailbreak detection. One concern is that it does add latency of 500 milliseconds or half a second. This seems like a small number, but it can really impact revenues or use an abandonment. And for example, in one implementation we did on machine learning, we wanted to have the entire interaction take 200 milliseconds. This would add 500 additional milliseconds. With an AI enterprise license, it costs $4,500 per GPU per year. It shows you how important that agentic is going to be for 2025 because they're creating a whole new guardrails just for agentic systems. And it's important maybe because, this is one way. It's hard to make LLMs secure and resist jailbreaks just if you have one LLM, let alone a bunch of LLMs that are interacting in a combinatorial explosion of ways.
All right. So got an important there. I know we're over time, so I'm going to give this one an important unless Adam or Luda, you have a strong objection.
I don't have an objection, but I would put it as optional. It's work in progress. Good they introduced it, but I think they will have to work on latency, as Lucinda pointed out. So, and they will, and it will go down. So but the introduction is good. But it is optional.
Yeah, for me, if it wasn't NVIDIA, it would be optional, but NVIDIA's got such a dominant share. I think it's really important. Okay, great. So what do we have in terms of the tote board, Adam?
Yeah, I don't have a sheet. Adam, do you?
Yeah, I'm bringing that up now.
Oh, okay, great.
There you go, John.
Thank you. Oh, wrong one. Here we go. So we have no essentials, 4 importance, and 2 optionals today. And remember, everybody, no Learning Lab on Monday because Paul and I are going to be in Davos. Have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you all next week with the news. Bye-bye now.
Lucinda, thanks for joining.